everybody.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Lights Out. You like that?
Yeah, a little different inflection today.
But I'm your host, Josh.
And I'm your host, Austin.
And I'm the producer, Daniel.
And today we've got some more religious weirdos.
Yep.
Religious people taking things way too far.
As always.
Completely discounting science altogether.
Yep.
And medical knowledge. It's just, it feels like, we've been covering a lot of stories lately of fanatical religious people who just take it and run with it, and they go as far as they possibly can until things just go horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's after doing this show, I just appreciate religious people who do it right, and keep it to, you keep it to yourself. There's nothing wrong with being religious. There's nothing wrong with having faith. Most of us have it, and so I appreciate everybody that just doesn't take it to the extreme. It's just like, my God, people, lives would be saved.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of religions, it's baked into the belief to proselytize. Like, I know a lot of religions, it's like, you can't get into heaven if you don't convert somebody. So it's like, it's just ingrained in people to spread it like a virus, where you don't really have to do that,
And it's like one thing to go out and spread the word.
Sure, yeah.
And leave it at that. But then it's another thing to go and enforce the word.
Yeah, oh yeah.
On other people.
There we go.
And you start enforcing it, and especially ignoring things like we'll talk about today, like people who have mental health issues.
Right.
And then starting to take somebody with mental health issues and start twisting that into something else.
Yes. Yeah, we're seeing like kind of an old school case here because it is an exorcism case, and a lot of these, if you go back, pre like mid 1900s, a lot of people just didn't have a good grasp on this. So if someone was acting strange, it was like immediately religious people were like, oh, possession,
right.
And we got to do an exorcism, and so it's just weird to see these cases in more modern times. Still occur. Really weird.
we covered a exorcism gone wrong a little while back. I think it was sometime last year, but it was very recent. I think it was within the last 5 to 10 years. That where a family member was thought to be possessed by demons, and in fact, obviously this person was seriously mentally ill, and the torture that this person underwent at the hands of their own family was shocking. And that's what's insane to me, is that we go from being concerned about them spiritually to full-blown physical abuse and torture.
Yeah.
In the name of God, or in the name of exorcising demons from somebody.
Yeah, towards someone you love.
It's just wild. It's like,
I always have a thought in the back of my head in cases like this where it's like, are these people just that devout that they truly believe what they're doing? Or are there maybe some masks on?
Yeah.
Where there's a bit of a sadistic part to them that keeps carrying out whatever they're doing because they're getting some thrill out of it. It's almost like you never know, because religion's the perfect cover for something like this. Faith is a perfect cover.
Yeah, because one could argue that any of that is a part of their faith, and that's a great point. I think it's very often a great mask to cover for somebody who's just a sadistic, evil person. Yeah. So today's story, we go down under. I do not have a good Australian accent whatsoever, and I'm not going to do our Aussie fans that way. I'm not going to do that.
No.
But we are going...
You want a tinny in the arvo, mate?
Yeah. We are going down under, though, to Antwerp, Australia, a small, remote town in southeastern Victoria, located approximately between Adelaide and Melbourne. And in 1993, when these events happened, the town had a population of just 63 people. So we're talking about just a dot on a map.
Very small.
Could be a whole family.
Yeah.
At 63 people with extended relatives. But before we get into the events that unfolded here, the very disturbing events at that, we need to talk about the people that were involved. And that starts with the two people at the very center of this story, Joan and Ralph Vollmer. In 1988, the recently married couple moved to a farm in Antwerp, and both were on their second marriage, and they were just looking for a fresh start together. Ralph was born in Germany, but his family moved to Australia when he was a child to escape the devastation of World War II. The move was pretty disruptive, especially when it came to Ralph's education, and he never even returned to primary school. And for those of us in the US, that's elementary school. As an adult, Ralph worked as a farmhand, he married, had 2 sons, and eventually divorced. And then there's Joan Vollmer. She was born Joan Leonora Taylor and grew up in Victoria. And as a child, she suffered physical and sexual abuse. She later married and had a child, but her husband died by suicide, which obviously only added to her trauma. Joan was hospitalized for mental health issues several times and was eventually diagnosed with schizophrenia. Throughout her life, she also struggled to make friends and just hold down a job. And while it's unclear exactly how Ralph and Joan first met in 1986, we do know that by 1989, the two were married at the Salvation Army Church in Horsham, Australia. And I hope I'm pronouncing all these places in Australia right. I really tried to do it. But again, I'm not perfect. But at first, life on the farm was calm for Ralph and Joan. Ralph, who was 55, worked as a pig farmer, while 49-year-old Joan enjoyed gardening and built a greenhouse. They mostly kept to themselves. I mean, when you move out to the middle of nowhere, it's generally the type of people that want to be there. They don't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
They don't really want a whole lot of social interaction. But those that did meet them described Joan as gentle and friendly. The farm was very, very isolated. Their driveway stretched about 500 meters. We're talking almost a quarter of a mile. And this is from the main road there. Trees surrounded the house, which made it very difficult to see from the road. And the Wimmera River bordered their property. During this period, Ralph became deeply interested in faith, religion. Before meeting each other, neither of them had been very religious. Joan had attended church services, while Ralph said he'd only gone to church for funerals or weddings. And together they became active in the Salvation Army Church. In his free time, Ralph read scriptures, listened to Christian music, and he prayed quite a bit. He decorated their home with religious items, including a plaque that read, "Christ is the head of this house, the unseen guest at every meal, the silent listener to every conversation." Joan, on the other hand, did not focus on her faith as much as Ralph. She preferred watching TV or just working in her garden. A local pastor said, "My reading of the relationship is that she was willing to be involved in religion, but really not that fanatical about it." A neighbor said, "You couldn't have a conversation with Ralph without religion coming into it." So Ralph's getting pretty into it. You know, it's like coming up constantly. It's really becoming part of his life. But this neighbor also said, you could normally talk to her. So you obviously kind of see the dynamic here. Ralph is deep in it already. Joan's kind of like dabbling a bit, but you know, she's also just kind of trying to live her life.
Yeah. Could be one of those things where your partner gets really into something, so you want to be supportive.
Yeah.
But you are not as into it as they are.
Yeah. I mean, you're married. You've got to try to kind of make it work.
Yeah.
But over time, Ralph began to think that Joan's lack of interest in religion meant that she had a spiritual problem. So you can start seeing the setting here. In September 1990, about a year into their marriage, things changed dramatically on the farm. Joan started acting differently. She could not sleep. She had trouble focusing. She talked more about her past abuse and used a childlike voice when she did. She became agitated, restless, and unpredictable. So one day, she told Ralph she had made a painting for him, but she had actually painted his car with house paint. Joan also started having some violent outbursts. Once she attacked Ralph outside, and he was so frightened that he ran into the house and locked the door. And although Joan had struggled with mental health prior, Ralph became convinced that she was actually possessed by an evil spirit. So he turned to his leaders at the Salvation Army Church for advice, and they told him it was probably a mental health crisis, not a spiritual one.
Boom.
So we have good advice coming from the church. And they recommended that he take her to go see a doctor. Ralph then took Joan to a clinic where doctors decided she should be admitted to the Lakeside Mental Health Hospital in Ballarat, about 3 hours away from Antwerp. Joan was admitted involuntarily that day, and she received several diagnoses and was treated for each of them. Ralph later said Lakeside told him she had some fancy name, like schizophrenia.
So you could tell from that he's not very well versed in mental health, right? If you're not aware of what schizophrenia is, that's a pretty basic understanding of mental health. I feel like most of us know what that is, right?
Yeah, and to say a fancy name is kind of dogging on it too.
Yes, yeah.
And discounting it. What she was actually diagnosed with was depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and hypomania, which I hadn't heard of hypomania before. But hypomania, according to the Cleveland Clinic, is a mood condition often characterized by high energy, extreme mood swings, and unusual behavior. People with hypomania may feel very happy to the point of grandeur, have racing thoughts, act impulsively, struggle to sleep, or believe they are invincible. So there's multiple pretty serious mental health conditions here that she's been diagnosed with at this point.
Yeah, and it's also a huge problem because early on, Ralph is clearly being, reductive of it. He can only name one, and he's also, like you were saying, he's dogging on the one that he even could name.
Yep.
So it shows that he's maybe not even all that interested in what they had to say.
Which obviously is concerning. And while at Lakeside Hospital, Joan began to improve. She was given thioridazine, an antipsychotic for schizophrenia. After she was given this medication, her mood and behavior became more stable. She still had some trouble sleeping, but things were looking up. And after 3 weeks, Joan was discharged. Doctors told her and Ralph that she needed to keep taking the medication for 12 months or her symptoms might return. After Joan got home, she was still restless and agitated. Ralph took her to a local clinic again, and the doctor noticed Joan was alert, but could not sit still and kept getting up. The doctor thought she was having side effects from that medication, thioridazine, so they lowered the dose, added another medication, and asked them to come back in 5 days. But unfortunately, they never returned again. So at this point, Ralph still believed that Joan was possessed, and the doctors could not help her. This is when he turned to his religious friends, John and Leanne Reichenbeck, who told him to pray for Joan. Ralph prayed a lot, and he asked God to remove the evil spirits from Joan. He started to feel guilty for asking God for so much help that he painted "Stop telling Father your needs" on a wall near the pigsty to remind himself to stop praying for help. Joan's mood and behavior then began to improve, and Ralph thought maybe his prayers were being answered and it was working. But the most likely scenario here, most probable, is that it was the medication working. But Joan, she stopped taking her medicine because they had believed that she was healed. And since the Reichenbecks had encouraged him to pray, Ralph came to trust them completely because he's now kind of seeing divine intervention. Yeah. This is a miracle. She's healed all through prayer.
It's so bizarre to me.
Not the medication at all.
Yeah, it is so bizarre for me to see this. I don't know. We talk a lot about medication in previous episodes. We talked about like trusting doctors. I don't even think you should trust doctors 100% of the time even. But in this case, it seems like anyone with remotely any ounce of critical thought would be like, okay, we took her to the doctor, she significantly improves, and that same doctor is then telling us she needs to continue this medication for 12 months. I would put a lot of trust in that doctor because clearly something was, it seems like she almost pulled a 180 here.
Right. I think it could also be Ralph. He's getting deeper and deeper into his religious faith, and that maybe he's thinking, if I believe that it was medicine and science, then perhaps my beliefs aren't real. Or, they create some doubt
he
there.
Needs to believe that it was God and divine intervention.
And I do feel like Ralph is deep in it and he really believes this stuff at this point. And he doesn't want to think anything else could be contributing to her health.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I always don't understand how that bridge gets so divided where it's like, can't you acknowledge that it could still be God through the doctors and the modern medicine? Yeah. Like, I don't get why they can't coincide.
Has to be one or the other.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I never really understand that logic.
This episode of Lights Out is brought to you by Quince. If you haven't shopped Quince before, what are you doing? Because, man, clothes these days can be such a pain to find good quality clothing.
It feels like everything's like overpriced and poor quality.
Nothing's worse than paying a bunch of money for a shirt and that shirt shrinks like 5 sizes in one wash.
And the threads are all coming out.
Yeah. Pisses me off.
Yeah, same.
But Quince, they're doing something different. They're creating premium clothing with premium materials, and the design is next level. But what's great about Quince is that they have options for everybody, whether it be male, female, or anything in between. They've got clothing for you. I just got a Quince jacket. It's like a suede jacket from them. I almost don't want to wear it because it's so nice.
So nice, yeah. It's like it's an art piece.
It really is. It's beautiful. It's well crafted. It feels well made. But Quince has everything. They've got travel gear. They've got bags, accessories, even jewelry, beauty, and wellness. I also have a really nice cashmere sweater from there. You know, I got to have a sweater. Super nice. I mean, just soft, comfortable. It's just everything I've gotten from them has been some of the best clothing that I own, quite honestly. It's great for gifts. It's great for just redoing your wardrobe if you're ready to get rid of a bunch of old stuff. They've got everything you possibly need. And what's cool about Quince is they work directly with top factories and cuts out the middleman, so you're not paying the brand markup. So honestly, I think the quality is up there with like designer brands, but they don't charge you the designer brand price, which is really nice.
Yeah, because I think it's direct to consumer.
Yeah,
it's nice.
What's also cool is they partner with factories that meet rigorous standards for craftsmanship and ethical production. So Quince cares about where their clothing is made, where their products are made from, so you know you're getting a good quality product from an ethical source. So refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/lightsout for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns.
Now available in Canada too. Shouts out. That's QUINCE.com/lightsout. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/lightsout. So who were the Reichenbachs? They were John and Leanne, and they were a young couple in their 30s who met at their Lutheran church, where both families were very well respected. They ended up marrying, they had 4 children, and believed that they had spiritual gifts. So they started practicing charismatic Christianity, which if you've never heard of this, I believe like Pentecostals are a big part of this. They follow the word of God and believe that a close relationship with him can lead to supernatural abilities. The charismatic movement began at a Pentecostal gathering in Los Angeles in 1906, where people claimed to be, quote, baptized by the Holy Spirit and to speak in tongues. Because if you remember the Pentecost, that's when the tongues came down and all the apostles could speak a billion languages. So there's some when you look at the mythos of the Bible, there's some paranormal stuff going on there, right? So they took this very literally. And the movement became even more popular in the 1960s and reached parts of Australia by the late 1980s. Followers believe they can heal the sick through prayer, receive messages from God, and speak in unknown languages. They say these spiritual gifts come from the Holy Spirit, not from themselves. By the early 1990s, John and Leanne Reichenbach were devoted followers of the charismatic movement and would passionately spread the word of the practices, and they claimed they were both, quote, spirit-filled Christians and experts at casting out evil spirits. Their strong beliefs led the leaders of their Lutheran church to excommunicate them because of theological differences. I mean, we see this a lot.
They're like, yeah, a little much.
And even it's so wild that even people this is a community of people who are prone to believing in God and even the supernatural elements that come with God. So if people are being excommunicated out of those circles, it's often because they're just getting way too radical about things. But this excommunication only made them more determined to share their faith, and they often held prayer meetings at their home with about 18 people, which included Ralph Vollmer. Ralph sometimes brought along Joan, though according to members of the group, she never really seemed all that interested, which again, it might go back to this, this is my husband, he's really interested in this, I want to be here for support, but maybe she's not as involved. Ralph ended up telling the Reichenbachs about Joan's mental health struggles, and they suggested trying a deliverance on her. This is similar to an exorcism, but a deliverance is meant to free someone's soul from a demonic entity or evil spirit through prayer and rituals. Unlike exorcisms, deliverances can be done in many different ways. And as we know, proper exorcisms are often done by the Catholic Church. So we're operating a little bit outside of exorcisms, even though we kind of just conventionally call these things exorcisms. Technically, what we're getting into is a deliverance. Following the Reichenbach's advice, Ralph asked Joan if she would agree to a deliverance, but she always refused. Ralph said, "I mentioned deliverance to her, but she wouldn't have a bar of it. She said, 'There's nothing wrong with me.'" But John and Leanne still thought Joan's soul needed saving and kept encouraging Ralph to follow their charismatic Christian beliefs. And in January 1990, they suggested that Ralph and Joan go to a 6-day charismatic convention in Adelaide. The convention included prayer circles, spiritual talks, and public deliverances. And while they were there, Joan's mood and behavior seemed to stabilize, and things changed on January 10th when the couple returned to their farm in Antwerp. Joan started showing signs of restlessness, irritability, and trouble sleeping again, and Ralph said she would act like a pig and make dog-like faces.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, I'm not even sure.
Like drooling like a dog or
dog-like faces? Yeah, panting.
What is it, like panting?
I don't know.
That's usually the face most dogs make.
Yeah, right. And a lot of this, going forward is a lot of the accounts are coming from Ralph or these other followers. So we kind of just have to take their word for it, but keep that in the back of your mind as we go through this case. She also began to imitate different people, changing her voice and mannerisms for each one. And at one point, she pretended to be a sheep shearer and spoke with an accent. Another time, she said she was a sex worker and told Ralph stories about past experiences with clients or sexual encounters with animals. If you remember, she does have a history of sexual abuse, and she was also caught speaking in that baby voice as well when she talked about her abuse. But Ralph later said that Joan started swearing more often, acting promiscuously, wandering around, and changing her clothes several times a day. She also became more likely to have violent outbursts and fits of rage, and during one of these moments, Ralph was frightened by the look in her eyes. He said they were bright red, almost glowing, almost like coals, which sounds to me like he's ramping up this possession.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, he's setting the stage here for a demonic possession.
Yep, because he was convinced that an evil spirit inside Joan had been awakened after witnessing the power of charismatic Christianity at the convention. He never once consulted any mental health professionals, even though they had been warned that her symptoms could return within 2 years if she didn't take her medication for those 12 months that they were prescribed. Instead, Ralph hung on to this spiritual belief and begged God to save Joan, but his prayers did not seem to help her. And on January 21st, Joan's friend, Roma Karras, visited her at the Antwerp farm and stayed overnight. And Roma said she was surprised to see Joan wearing a nightgown and a heavy robe during the day, especially since it was summer in Australia. Which, these temperatures in Victoria reach 104 degrees Fahrenheit at times, incredibly hot. But despite the heat, Joan's hands would often feel very cold to Roma. She noticed that Joan's stomach was swollen as well, and when she asked about it, Joan told her that she was pregnant. But then several hours later, she told her that she had a large tumor. But Joan would also hunch her body and appear elderly. Roma later said it was terrifying, and Joan looked like an older woman with a disability. I don't know what is going on inside this house, but during the visit, Joan tore apart the flowers she had brought her, sang in a high-pitched voice at very random times, and warned her about sexual predators on the farm who wanted to harm them. Joan even pointed into a field saying one was out there, but Roma couldn't see anyone. The next morning, before leaving the farm, Roma spoke privately with Ralph about her concerns, and she believed Joan was having a mental health crisis that would likely get worse. However, Roma's warnings did not change Ralph's belief that Joan was possessed by a demonic entity.
Later that day, Ralph left Joan at home alone while he went out to the grocery store. And when he came back, he found Joan outside, waving her hands and dancing in the paddock where they kept their livestock. Ralph tried to bring her inside, but Joan ran away. She was found several hours later about 2.5 miles from the farm, apparently just wandering around. Ralph then brought Joan home and tried locking her in the basement and tying her to her bed, but he let her go after she just kept screaming. He prayed to God for help, and that's when he heard a voice telling him to call the Reichenbachs for advice. Ralph explained the situation to them, and they agreed to come on over, and John arrived at the house around 11:30 p.m. to see Joan. Within just a half hour of being there, John told Ralph that she was definitely possessed by demons, and the only way to save her was to perform a deliverance. In order to do this, they needed to bind the spirits to Joan to make them powerless, so they tied her to a chair in the kitchen. Then the two men stayed up all night questioning Joan and passionately praying for her salvation. During this time, they believed they learned more about the malevolent entities possessing her. They thought some of them were the evil spirits of a pig, a dog, and a man. There was also a mother-daughter pair of demons called Princess Joan and Baby Princess Joan, which I have never heard this type of entities being described in any other possession case I've come across.
No.
A mother-daughter pair of demons?
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
What on earth?
Yeah. Also, man, I think right here we're already past the point of no return.
Yes, 100%.
Because we're immediately, no doctors, no hospital. We're going straight to, in my opinion, Ralph specifically sought the Reichenbachs out to just confirm. It was just confirmation bias here. He's like, oh my God, I think she's possessed. He calls up the people who will absolutely agree with him and then ramp it up even more.
Yeah.
Then now we're here.
I think he kind of feels justified having this other, having John come in and confirm his suspicions.
Right.
They also believe that Joan was possessed by several demons called legion. In the Bible, Jesus met a man possessed by a legion, and they thought this was the same group of demons that was afflicting Joan. And when the legion appeared, Joan would act more masculine and have a harsh expression. When Princess Joan or Baby Princess Joan was present, she became softer and spoke in a childlike voice. Throughout the night, the two men tried to cast the evil entities from Joan, but her condition never improved.
We've come across legion before in possession cases.
Yep.
Yeah, and sometimes it's even described as like an army. It's like Satan's army of demons, like 1,000
hordes of demons. Yeah. Early the next morning, on January 23rd, Leanne came to the house to relieve her husband of his spiritual duties, and he went back home to watch their kids. She was ready to take a much more proactive approach to casting out the demons. Leanne said she had been part of multiple exorcisms, but had never seen anything quite like this. She called multiple people from her prayer group for guidance on what to do, including Leah Clugston. Leah was 78 years old and said she could speak directly to God, which made others in the group see her as a spiritual leader. Leah had never met Joan, but after one phone call about what was happening, she said God told her that Joan was possessed by 10 different demons. So here's another person coming in to confirm all of their suspicions. And after hearing this, Leanne decided she and Ralph needed to find out more about who these spirits were. So they sat on one side of the kitchen and made Joan sit on the other while they questioned her. And for 2 days, they asked her questions, prayed for her, and played Christian music.
God.
Yeah, torture begins.
Yeah.
One session lasted from noon until 5 a.m., which is
oh my God,
absurd. During this time, they did not give Joan food or water because they were worried that if they did, that it would be feeding the beast inside of her.
Crazy.
Which just shows how loony these guys are. Like, what on earth? Leanne later explained that she never asked Joan for permission to perform the deliverance because, as she put it, she was in no position to understand what was to take place. Okay, so you shouldn't be doing it at all then.
Right, yeah.
Especially as we see what's coming next. Joan was very restless during this time, so they tied her more tightly to a chair with her own stockings to keep her from moving and from facing north, which they believed was the direction she would face to speak with the devil. Curious to understand where that came from. But despite their efforts, Joan did not improve. Throughout this period, Leanne kept calling different members of her prayer group for advice. On the third day, she called David Klinger, who offered to come over to the farm to help. David worked as a field harvester and said he had experience with deliverances. Reports differ on his exact age, but he was between 28 and 30 years old. He was also a committed member of the Reichenbach's group. He had recently seen Joan at a prayer circle where he felt something was wrong with her because she had a blank look on her face.
What?
Yeah. He later said he also saw her eyes roll back in her head. Which, could this be from anything other than demonic possession?
That's so crazy to me. If I'm at a religious meeting and I have a blank look on my face and my eyes roll back in my head, it's because I'm scoffing and I'm bored. That's what's going on.
But no, it can't be that.
Yeah, it has to be demonic possession.
Or she's just out of it because she's off her medication.
Right, yeah, that too.
Or she's just like not in the right state of mind. She's struggling just to be conscious.
Right, yeah.
And yeah, but no, it's legions, it's 10 demons duking it out.
Right. And I want to backtrack just a hair where they were talking about how they didn't ask Joan for permission. It's weird that like consent is brought into this, and then I was thinking, I'm like, if he even changed anything if Joan was like, yeah, no, this is cool, you guys can do this to me? Does that change anything about this case? I don't think it does.
I think if it ever goes to court, in their minds, maybe
they would
that's
be like,
helpful.
yeah,
but they're not worried about that at all.
Yeah,
they're just like, she can't answer because she's under the control of these demons. So even if she said yes or no, we're not going to take it seriously because it's just the demon talking.
Yeah. And we need to like conceal what we're doing from the demon.
Right.
So we can't let them in on too much.
No.
Yeah.
But as you can probably imagine, the situation intensified when David Klinger shows up at the farm on January 26th. And he said it was like a spiritual battle with God against Satan and Satan's armies.
Yeah.
So it's just like, what the hell is going on here?
Every person they invite here keeps ramping
they're like,
it up.
Oh, you thought there was 10 demons? No. Yes. Satan is literally battling God.
Yeah, right.
And his whole army's here.
Yeah.
This is war.
Ridiculous.
But David described Joan as unusual and verbally abusive. Maybe she was upset about what was happening.
Right, yeah.
Hence why she was saying the things she was.
Right.
But he later claimed that Joan refused to look at him because she could see Jesus in him.
All right.
It's really getting hard to believe anybody in this story anymore.
Yeah.
But David instructed them to strap her down even harder. They then tied her feet to boards and tried to stop her from being able to escape. So now she's captured and bound. He then began to question her. And whenever she gave an answer he didn't like, he would violently slap her. So now he's physically attacking her. And she's strapped down. So this is the torture that begins. Ralph, he's watching this, begins to feel uneasy about how Joan's being treated. He's like, ooh, maybe this isn't good. Which is like, good. Finally, he's having a thought of like, is this actually harmful to my wife?
Right.
So he asked David and Leanne to stop, but they insisted that they were not hurting Joan, only the demons that were living inside of her. Later on, Ralph said, there was one occasion where I cracked up a little bit and I said, no, this can't be right. I can't believe this is God's will. That we should be so harsh to her, restraining her with such force that there were bruises and so on.
It's crazy that he had this thought and then still this.
And then wasn't like, all right, time to take her to the doctors.
Yeah,
like,
right.
This isn't working. What are we doing here? This is wrong.
Yeah.
But because David and Leanne, they're there, they apparently know what they're doing, are constantly quoting Bible passages to prove that they're doing the right thing. Of course, they're pulling the Bible passages out. It didn't take long for Ralph to be reassured that everything they're doing was okay and even necessary in order to rid these demons from Joan.
And this is what I'm talking about, where it's used as a mask, where I'm like, they invite this guy over and he immediately like starts slapping her almost.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is the sadist here with the mask of God on, and that he is even claiming that she saw Jesus in him.
Right.
So he also has like illusions of grandeur,
Mm-hmm.
and then immediately slapping her. It's so wild to me.
Our next sponsor is one of our favorites.
Oh my God.
I will go on and on about this, and I even just rant and rave about it at home in a good way. I love wild grain. I truly love it because everything from wild grain tastes like it was made right in your kitchen from scratch. But it's not. It's frozen. It comes frozen in a box.
Yep. They figured it out, man.
I don't know what they did over there, but shouts out to everybody at Wild Grain because their products are unmatched. They have pastas, breads. I actually just made a sourdough loaf the other day.
That's one of my favorites there. Yeah, it's so good. It lasts a while too. It's a big loaf.
Yeah, you could throw it in your freezer for months.
Yeah.
Pull it out, and you're like, there's no way this is going to still be good.
Yeah.
You throw it in the oven for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like it was just, I'm like, how
it's
the
so
hell
good.
did
It's
do
got
this?
that nice crunch to it on the edge.
Yes.
And it's like really soft on the inside.
With that, everything from Wild Grain is good. You literally can't go wrong. But best of all, and I say this every time I talk about Wild Grain, is
I
their
know what you're going to say.
giant chocolate chunk cookies, which I made last night.
Did you?
And I wish I could have an unlimited supply. Wild Grain, they figured it out. They use simple ingredients that you can pronounce in a slow fermentation process that can be easier on your belly and richer in nutrients and antioxidants. So this is very, very high quality goods. And their boxes are customizable. So you can build your own box. If you want just a box of cookies, you can get a box of cookies or a box of pasta. Or you can get different variety boxes. They also have a gluten-free box, a vegan box even, and a new protein box, which is awesome. So there's something for everybody. It also makes for a great gift. And around the holidays, it is a showstopper, quite honestly. Now is the best time to stay in and enjoy comforting homemade meals with Wild Grain. We highly recommend that you give Wild Grain a try.
Right now, Wild Grain is offering our listeners $30 off your first box, plus those free croissants for life when you go to wildgrain.com/lightsout to start your subscription today. That's $30 off your first box and free croissants for life when you visit wildgrain.com/lightsout, or you can use promo code lightsout at checkout.
Do it now. You won't be disappointed. And if you are, we have a problem.
The three continued to question Joan, during which she allegedly told them that the quote-unquote real Joan had died when she was given a satanic baptism at just 3 years old. She had been selected in the satanic realm after her father had dabbled in the occult and was possessed by a demon. Joan's mother also gave birth to multiple babies who were all sacrificed to Satan, and Joan's family later denied all of these claims, obviously. Joan also said that her stomach had once been cut open and her organs removed. Again, this is what she's saying according to the people who were there. And she said that she was then given a baby and told she had a cesarean birth, a C-section. And she said she raised the baby, but it was later taken from her and then handed directly to Satan. It is unclear whether Joan actually said these things or if they were made up to justify the deliverance, as I was saying. And if she did say them, it's very, very important to remember that she was not in a good state of mind. This is a person who has been diagnosed with several mental health disorders. So remember that going forward. And also just remember that these stories are coming from the people who were subjecting this poor woman to this torture. She was then deprived of food and water, tied to a chair, and physically attacked in extreme heat. The people with her did not seem to consider any of this, and instead they believed everything she said was true. They just took it as fact. David Klinger later described Joan by saying this: "The medical professional world would simplify by saying it's schizophrenia, dramatic mood changes before and after I arrived. She was swollen in the stomach to the extent she looked 5 months pregnant. Her ability to read our minds when we were not praying in the spirit." Now, really quick, since this is the second mention of Joan's swollen stomach, as if you remember, Roma, her friend that came over and stayed with her, also mentioned this. Here's actually a little bit of information we dug up. And according to the National Library of Medicine, gastrointestinal issues can be a symptom of schizophrenia. The brain chemicals involved in schizophrenia can also affect the digestive system, which can then lead to a swollen stomach. So while the group was seeing Joan's stomach as evidence of something supernatural going on, it was most likely just a symptom of her mental health condition.
Which makes me even more furious.
Yeah, right.
That they're just torturing her.
Yeah.
And she's seriously ill.
Yep.
And needs medical help.
Yeah. And considering, like, if they truly did believe she was pregnant, then they're actively abusing a pregnant woman on top of this, in their minds, at least, in their perception.
They're all committing felony assault.
Right,
in the name of God.
Yeah. So on Thursday, which was the 6th day of the exorcism or deliverance, Ralph suggested tying her feet to wooden planks to keep her from moving around. Oh boy. Joan's condition basically stayed the same, so Leanne kept calling the members of her prayer circle for advice. During one of these phone calls, a member, her name was Kathleen Nuske, offered a solution, and she told them Leanne should call her son, 22-year-old Matthew, to come over and help. Matthew worked as an assistant greenkeeper at a golf course, but his mother believed he had a special ability to channel God, of course. And he had never performed an exorcism or deliverance before, but the group ended up just trusting him completely. As they seem to be doing with everyone coming over. It's just like, okay, yeah, let's get this going. And before Matthew arrived, the three of them cleared everything out of the kitchen except for the chair where Joan was tied. They tried to keep her calm while waiting for David, and by this point, Ralph had completely deferred to everyone else on how to handle things. He later said, Leanne herself is very sensitive to the voice of the Lord. David, too, is pretty sensitive in that area where I am not. On Saturday, January 30th, which was the 7th day, Matthew arrived. When he got there, things became even more bizarre. He said that Joan called him 22 piss pot, which he thought referred to his age and his previous alcohol issues. In Australian slang, piss pot means someone who drinks a lot. Joan had never met him before and couldn't have known these things, so Matthew saw this as proof that a demon was sending messages through her. Which, I mean, is ridiculous, because, like, why? I mean, gossip, word gets around, people know each other, especially when it comes to, unfortunately, things like drug abuse or alcoholism. Rumors spread about those people, so I don't think it's out of the question, especially in such a tiny town. I don't think it's too out of the question that Joan would have known something about this guy, you know?
And zero credentials.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Like, these guys are just random dudes.
Yeah.
That have no formal, like, even faith-based training or any, like, nothing whatsoever.
Right.
Just like, yeah, I got supernatural abilities.
Yeah, right.
Just came from the golf course.
All right, I'll believe you.
Yeah, okay,
come on in. Yeah. He also said the demons made Joan try to show him her private parts to exploit his weaknesses. Right, yeah.
Let's put this on Joan.
Yeah, exactly. It is.
How can we, like, put it back on her to justify my action?
Right. And she repeated numbers and made signs with her fingers, which he believed were more attempts by the demons to communicate with him. Yeah, everything's just the demon doing something, always. He ordered the group to go to town to get olive oil and cling wrap. You know, that's it keeps food fresh. We know it as saran wrap in some places, but yeah. So what is he doing with this? Well, Matthew took the cling wrap roll and ran around the house with it 7 times to seal the doors and windows. It was a way to keep the demons at bay, he said, but it's unclear exactly how he got back into the house after this. Somehow he did and continued this escalation. And then he blessed the olive oil and ordered Leanne, Ralph, and David to pour it on themselves.
What the fuck is wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
And since when did saran wrap keep demons at bay?
I don't understand the saran wrap thing at all.
Oh, my God.
The oil thing I kind of understand because oil is used in anointing and, like, you know, blesses and rituals and stuff. I've heard of oil.
But a demon can't go through plastic wrap?
Yeah, what is that?
It's going to keep him inside.
I put that on their product. Keep demons out, keep food fresh.
Yeah, God.
Keep the demons in.
You would think at this point, you know, if Ralph already was having some reservations earlier on, I think seeing the wacko going around the house 7 times with cling wrap would be like, yeah, maybe this is the bad idea and these people are crazy.
Well, Ralph doesn't seem like the smartest person in the world.
Yeah,
I'm going to be honest.
yeah.
If he hasn't been convinced by this point, I'm just going to flat out say it. He seems kind of stupid.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately, I think I give people too much credit in these situations. I just want them to be just a little bit smarter.
Yeah.
But they never are. But anyways, the next step, they started destroying Joan's belongings. because Matthew, the fuckwit who doesn't know anything, said that demons were attached to them. They made her watch as they tore up her garden, believing she spent all her time there worshiping Satan. Which, I mean, okay, so we're dealing with mental health, and then now we're like actively, not only physically abusing them, but like now mentally and emotionally torturing this woman of like, oh, this is your hobby? We're going to go destroy it. She's acting crazy. It must be the demons. It has nothing to do with us being complete assholes and criminals right now.
No.
It's insanity. They also used a hammer to smash things like her jewelry, trinkets, vases, and ceramic kitten figurines.
What the hell is wrong with them?
I don't know.
Like, you're not going to listen to me? Well,
I'm going to destroy all your
in front
shit.
of you. Yeah. It's just straight torture.
Which is also
time.
Ralph's shit, too.
Yeah. What's Ralph? Ralph's like,
is he just sitting in the corner?
My whole house is destroyed. Yeah. If he's just like,
Come
okay,
on.
cool. Like,
I don't get it, man.
And what boggles my mind is that the medication worked.
Right.
They had the solution to this.
They did.
Way before this.
Yeah. It was an active choice to reject that.
Yeah. It was stupidity.
Yeah.
So like they want to put all their spiritual abilities to work.
Right. Yeah.
They haven't had any situation to use them.
Yeah.
And so by like deliverance time.
Right. Yeah. And by they, we're talking Ralph and the churchgoers, not Joan, because I think it's hard.
No, Joan doesn't seem interested in any of this, really.
Right, yeah. And if a person who's dealing with a mental health crisis goes off their medication, it's up to the people who are caring for them. Mm-hmm. It's up to their husband. That's
your job. We literally just talked about this in the previous episode. It's up to the husband to do something about it. That's literally your role.
Right. So while all this is going on, the group was also, of course, reading scriptures aloud, and they sang songs of worship.
I like to think that if God is real, he was just pulling his hair out.
Yeah.
If he has hair. Watching this unfold. Like, if we're talking about the God of the Bible, I like to think that he somehow had an eye on this situation and was like, well, I gave him free will, but this is batshit crazy. What's going on?
Yeah.
What on earth?
If God was real and the benevolent being that we think he is, he would have stopped this.
No, Satan did show up to this.
Yeah, right.
Satan is there.
Honestly.
The devil showed up.
Yeah. It's just in all the people who are claiming that God is inside them, it's actually Satan.
Lucifer at work.
Yeah, honestly.
You know, he fooled these guys for sure. The deceiver.
Yeah, honestly. But man, so all the while, Joan is becoming more aggressive. Of course she is. And
she's,
yeah, but they see it as these spirits that were being
Why is she fighting back?
Yeah.
Must be the devil.
Right. So whenever Joan talked back or said something they thought was inappropriate, they slapped her. And as far as what they deemed inappropriate, it's not very clear. It could have been anything, right? But they estimated they hit her about 20 times. And at one point, Matthew slapped her so hard that she hit her head against a wall and begged them to stop. Obviously,
it's time to stop.
We have a confirmation that she actually told them to stop at one point, but no one listened to her, and instead, they became even more violent. And during this, Joan managed to actually break free, but they dragged her back and then pinned her to the chair.
A lot of you out there will leave us comments talking about how you fall asleep to our show, which bless you for falling asleep while listening to us. We appreciate you. And if you're lying in bed and maybe you're tossing and turning, have you thought about your mattress lately? Your mattress is extremely important. You spend a lot of time on it. So if you haven't gotten a new mattress in a while, or maybe you've thought about, my mattress is starting to feel lumpy, I'm sinking into the middle, it might be time to upgrade your mattress. In Helix Sleep, they have revolutionized the mattress, and they have mattresses for all types of sleepers at all different types of price points. Austin has a Helix mattress.
Yes, I finally made the jump, which was scary.
You were reluctant.
Because I've had the same mattress for like 10 years and my body was so used to it. I was scared of making the jump, but I did. And I got I believe it's called the Midnight mattress, which is a part of their Luxe collection.
Yes.
I think it's their best-selling mattress.
For a good reason.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I love this mattress. I don't see myself moving away from it anytime soon. I'll probably have this one for another 10 years if I'm being honest.
And maybe you already have a mattress that you really like. They also have toppers to go on top of that mattress you already have to just make it that much better. But I also have a Midnight Lux, and my daughter has the Helix Kids mattress.
Oh, nice.
Which she's sleeping great. Yeah, she sleeps on a full-size Helix Kids mattress.
Nice.
And what's great about it is it'll last her till she's like 11 years old.
Yeah.
Is kind of the age range. So she's going to have it for a long, long time. And you can flip the sides on it. So there's like a side for when they get a little bit older and heavier to support their growth and their weight. And then there's a side for when they're smaller that gives them the support they need at that age. So it's cool. It's a dual purpose. It'll last for 10 plus years. She's been sleeping great on it. But Helix is revolutionary when it comes to sleep. They've got mattresses for everybody. They have a quiz online that you can go and do, and they'll match you up with the right mattress based on all these in-depth questions about, side sleeper. Do you like firm, soft, hot, cold, all these different questions, and they'll match you up with the right one. And what's great about Helix is that they give you 120 nights to sleep on it.
Wow.
Their customer support is top notch. They've got everything you need to redo your bedroom. They've got cooling covers for the mattresses. They've got pillows. They've got sheets. They have mattress protectors, which are very important, especially for a kid's mattress. Sometimes there's accidents. So right now you can visit helixsleep.com/lightsout to take advantage of their President's Day sale. The sale is an exclusive partner offer, and you get 27% off site-wide. You heard that right. helixsleep.com/lightsout. Then Matthew began to yell scriptures at Joan. She was still restrained to the kitchen chair, but fighting hard to get up. Leanne and Ralph held her down, and David stood behind her, forcing her in a headlock, prying her eyes open with his fingers so that she was forced to look at Matthew, reciting past. It just makes no sense. It's like, if this is a spiritual matter, why are we making this a physical matter?
It's a good point.
When none of it is work, the spiritual stuff doesn't work. So they literally think Joan, in her entire body, is possessed by evil at this point, and that it is not Joan there anymore. Everything they're dealing with, everything they're seeing and hearing and experiencing is demonic in nature.
Yeah,
which is absolutely insane. But Leanne then said the demons were in Joan's womb and needed to be pushed out. So she pressed on Joan's pelvis and then moved to her chest and throat, which I can only imagine was extremely painful and uncomfortable. And when she thought the demons were stuck in Joan's neck, she pressed there too, even harder. David forced open Joan's mouth, and Leanne pushed her tongue several times, trying to force the spirits out. Leanne believed only 2 demons remained, so she kept going. Ralph later said, "I do not know how many she had in her in the beginning, but at the end, there were 2 strong men, and they were very hard to get out." That statement also just tells you, where Ralph's intelligence is at. My God. Some reports claim the 4 took turns sitting on her, though this isn't officially confirmed. But what is clear is that Joan's body was badly battered and assaulted by all of this. She was also coughing and frothing at the mouth. They continued for about 4 hours, and around 4:30 p.m., Joan stopped breathing. Ralph said she was hissing and groaning and carrying on before she screamed, and then the demons released her. He said he was looking into her eyes when her lights went out.
Ugh.
Leanne said she could still feel a heartbeat, so she stopped pushing, and the group tried to resuscitate her. But unfortunately, it was way too late. Joan had passed away at the age of 49 years old, but then Matthew said that this was a victory over the demons, and it's okay. God is going to raise her up again. And the group, especially Ralph, was convinced of this. Because I think, how could you not be at this point? If you just sat through all of that, you're committed.
Yeah, and you think you're fighting the good fight, then it's like, no, it'll all turn out in the end.
So they then took her body, laid it on her bed, and left it there for 2 days. So still, when they thought she was possibly dead, they did not call for help. Soon after Joan died, Leanne called her husband John to say Joan had stopped breathing and was resting. John later admitted that they never talked about calling a doctor. Leanne said she had a vision right after Joan died. She saw Joan standing outside the tomb of Lazarus, staring at the entrance but too afraid to go in. Leanne told Ralph to call out for her, hoping a familiar voice would help Joan return to her body. So Ralph, he knelt down next to Joan's body and called out. Leanne and David told him that Joan could hear him, but didn't know where the voice was coming from. Leanne said she saw Joan walking toward her, but the vision ended before Joan reached her. Further delusions here. But as Joan's body decomposed quickly in the extreme heat, the group stayed in the farmhouse waiting for her resurrection to take place. They prayed, they sang, and talked about God's victory over this big demonic battle they had just won. Kathleen Nuske, one of the prayer group members, and Matthew's mother also visited the farm to pray over Joan. So the sheer amount of people coming here to see a deceased Joan and not doing anything about it, but just joining in.
Yeah, and kind of just like normalizing it, which is so bizarre.
Crazy.
And I get it. I mean, you go through the Bible, if you take it
the
literally,
story of Lazarus.
Yeah, it's a real story. And like even the story of Jesus Christ himself, resurrected after 3 days, right? So if you're taking all this incredibly literally, maybe you are convinced that something like this could happen. I don't know.
But Leah Clungston, the group member who originally diagnosed Joan with having 10 demons in her over the phone, also visited the house the night after Joan died. She was told the demons had left Joan's body and felt God wanted her to lay hands on Joan. She placed her hands on Joan and then said, "In the precious name of Jesus, Joan, arise and walk." She repeated this twice more before feeling God telling her to leave. On February 1st, Leah contacted a local pastor and told him everything. And that pastor then did the right thing and contacted the authorities because he probably was like, what on earth?
Yep.
Ralph later said he wouldn't have contacted the authorities himself. Had his pastor not informed someone, it's unknown how long Joan's body would have been decomposing in his house. When the officer arrived, the group was sitting and eating lunch. He asked Ralph what they planned to do with Joan's body, and Ralph said they would not make arrangements or plan a funeral. He told the officer he expected to see the greatest miracle, and that Joan would just walk out of her bedroom. The officer was absolutely taken aback by this, shocked even, and he just said nothing. When the officer saw Joan, her skin was literally breaking down, and blowflies and maggots were already present. So she's deep into the decomposition process. And although only 2 days had passed, because of the extreme heat, there's obviously no AC in this farmhouse. It's very, very hot. It's speeding up the decomposition. This officer then called for backup, and the farmhouse became a crime scene. An autopsy showed that the pressure on Joan's neck caused a fracture to her thyroid cartilage or voice box, which led to a heart attack. However, the advanced decomposition made it hard to say for sure if this pressure actually caused the cardiac arrest that occurred. Pressure on her carotid arteries or on the back of her tongue, which could have compressed her windpipe, might have also contributed to her death. But all these factors led to Joan suffering cardiac arrest, which caused her death. The pressure used to push out the demons most likely caused some of these problems. And surprisingly, no arrests were immediately made. For reasons that aren't exactly clear, the four involved wouldn't face charges for months. But in the meantime, they showed little remorse for what had happened to Joan. How does that align with Christian beliefs whatsoever?
Right.
To make matters worse, Ralph did not call Joan's family to tell them what had happened. Because of course he doesn't want to tell them what happened.
No.
It'd be shocking and extremely upsetting to hear how Joan had died.
Yeah, I think even though he thinks, or he's saying that he thinks that Joan will return and be resurrected, I think he knows deep down it's not true, and he's ashamed of this, and so of course he's not going to call them. Right?
Yeah. Her brother-in-law said Ralph called 3 days after they had already heard about her death, and Ralph only said she died slowly and would share more details later, but he never contacted them again.
He knows.
The family learned the rest of the details from the media.
Good God.
Which how just insanely shocking that would be.
Yeah.
And horrific.
Yeah. Despite everything that had happened, Ralph still apparently believed Joan would be resurrected. He told the press he would grieve until his wife returned. He said, "Joan will be Joan as I know her. I'm quite sure of that, but other than that, I don't know."
What?
It's just a nonsense statement. As more days passed and Joan had not returned, Ralph believed she would rise at her funeral, or at least that's what he's saying. He invited the press to attend the service and witness it. He told them, God has made a solemn promise that she will rise on the day of the funeral, and he wants us to witness it. The funeral was attended by 90 people, including friends, neighbors, and members of the Salvation Army Church. None of Joan's family was there. Probably because I would be erratic. I would be so flustered and angry. I would probably act out. So it was probably a smart move on their part to just be like, we can't go to this because something would happen. But they just couldn't bring themselves to attend. Apparently, they were just so traumatized.
Well, and the media is there too. I mean, the last thing they want to do is be pestered by the media about this.
Oh my God. And knowing that like no arrests had occurred by this point. When her casket was lowered into the ground, it was clear she was not coming back. And then Ralph began to cry. And after the service, he told the press, maybe she did not want to come back, as it was so nice up there, but I will meet up with her when my time comes.
Oh, buddy, you're not going up.
Yeah, you're not going up, man. Also, I hate that it's such a delusion. You do all these terrible things to your own wife, and then you still think that there's going to be a little cherry on top at the end of all this. You're living in a complete delusion. He also said, we are human, and we do make mistakes, and sometimes we mistake God's voice with our own.
Oh,
this guy
little too late, man.
I know. It's crazy. This guy has this clarity that comes in once every few months, and he like starts to see the reality of what's happening. And then it seems like he just shuts it down and goes back to the delusion.
Which honestly just makes him look more guilty.
Right, honestly.
It's like, oh, so you were competent during all this? You understand that what happened was clearly not good because it wasn't God.
Yeah.
So you were culpable in this.
Yep. Reports say 2 of the men who attended the exorcism also attended the funeral, but it's unclear whether that was David Matthew or John Reichenbach. But either way, the 2 men told the press that they still believed they had done the right thing. And they weren't the only ones to express this type of sentiment, because after all this, the 4 remained strong in their faith and still believed that what they did was right.
Electric chair.
Yeah, it's just...
Maybe a bit extreme, but...
It's just...
Come on.
I know. Wake up. Wake up. Leanne said that she only used a reasonable amount of pressure when trying to push the demons out of Joan, and claimed it wasn't even enough to make someone wince. I'm just supposed to take your word for this,
anybody's going to believe that?
Yeah, come on.
There's bruises on her.
Right, yeah.
There's forensic evidence that says otherwise, so...
Yeah. Ralph argued that the pressure wasn't that bad and was only enough to break a limb.
Come on.
That's a lot of pressure. It was only enough to break a limb.
These people are sick fucks.
Yeah, God.
Oh, it wasn't that bad. We weren't pressing that hard.
Just enough to break a bone
just to
here.
snap the bone in half.
God.
But she's screaming.
Yeah, and telling them to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Means it hurt.
Yeah, these people are just trying to cover their ass. He also said that the force put on her body was reasonable because they were dealing with an evil spirit. Always, this is just the excuse. He said, it would have hurt my wife terribly, but it was not my wife. I would not allow anything like that to happen to my wife. She was an evil spirit that had to be dealt with.
God, Ralph is so stupid.
Yeah, they're just the way they think about this whole thing is so juvenile and dumb.
Yeah.
It's like some storybook shit.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll just squeeze it out of her like a tube of toothpaste. It's like dumb.
Ridiculous.
Oh my God.
I mean, growing up religious, there was a point, I'll admit, there was a point in my life where I thought that like the paranormal stuff within the Bible was like extremely literal and like that stuff really happened. Even like the story, like Old Testament, like Noah, like the entire planet flooded. I was like, oh yeah, for
totally
sure that happened.
Yeah, they got one of each animal and they put them on the boat.
Yeah, like
yeah,
of
that's
course, that's totally
we're
reasonable.
here. We're all descendants of Noah.
Yeah, right. But then, like, as I got older, I was like, of course this can't be true. Of course it can't. There's religious truth to it. If you want to apply whatever metaphors to that story you want. But this did not happen. The whole world didn't flood. And I'm sorry if you truly believe that. We differ on opinion on that vastly. But I feel like any kind of rational person would then be like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense, does it? We would also have evidence of the world flooding if this happened. But I guess the scientists are just lying to us. They planted the bones of the dinosaurs. That everything's a lie. Only God is real. But at some point, you grow up, right? And you get out of this. So either they're using this as a cover to lie.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably the case. Or they are the equivalent of me when I was a third grader.
Yeah. It's hard to say which one it is, but
I don't know. But anyway, he continued to say to the police that he knew they thought he was a nit around the bend, which is Australian.
It's a little more than a nit around the bend.
Yeah, which is Australian slang for insane or crazy. And he added, but you will soon change your mind. David Klinger said that in worldly terms, it would have been better for them to call an ambulance for Joan. But he also said...
Admitting guilt?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we should have called an ambulance, but in worldly terms,
right,
you wouldn't understand. This was more than that.
Exactly. Because he said, we are not dealing in worldly terms. This is a spiritual matter. But then to Josh's point earlier, if this is a spiritual matter, why are you physically touching her?
Yeah, there's no reason to.
Because
the demons aren't physically touching you.
Yeah. Because that's the worldly, if we're speaking in worldly terms.
The physical reality would be worldly.
Yeah. And the body, right?
Right.
That's world.
It's just a vehicle. The soul is its own independent thing.
Right. So
what's the point of
even their delusion?
Her?
The logic of their delusion doesn't even.
No, that's why I said
their
spiritual knowledge is very juvenile. It's just like dumb. It's like
their water supply.
They thought they just like push it out of her.
Yeah. It makes no sense. Ugh, it's so frustrating. But a few months after Joan's death, all four ended up being charged with manslaughter and released on bail while they waited for trial. And yeah, that's frustrating with just a manslaughter charge. But during this time, Ralph spoke to the press often and even invited journalists to the farmhouse. And on one occasion, he showed a journalist the mattress where Joan had been placed after she died, which he kept outside on the property after her body was removed. Weird.
Okay.
Weird.
Yeah.
In another interview, he told a journalist that religion was what was really on trial.
Of course.
Just save it, man. Just spare me. He said, to some degree, the Lord himself has been on trial. The sovereignty of the Lord, the reality of Jesus Christ, the reality of the spiritual realms, of the realm of God and the realms of Satan have been on trial. Just save it, man. He also told a journalist that the group was not responsible for Joan's death, saying it was a spiritual matter. So it sounds like they all just bought into no, it's a spiritual matter. We're dealing in spiritual terms, not worldly terms. It sounds like they almost all agreed on this and met up and decided that this was going to be their defense.
Well, it's a physical matter too.
Yeah, right.
She's physically dead.
Exactly.
Because of you. So it's
because
not
of your
just a spiritual
physical
matter.
actions. Yeah.
Which I'm glad that a prosecutor over there was like, yeah, this is manslaughter. This is at the very least manslaughter here.
Yeah. In September 1993, a court magistrate dismissed the charges, saying there was not enough evidence to convict, even though he said the exorcism played a part in Joan's death. Because Leanne pushed on her throat and David pried her mouth open, it was unclear which action caused her thyroid cartilage to fracture. And in my opinion, you just take them both down.
Yeah.
If you're not really sure, they're both complicit in what's happening. They're all complicit in what's happening, in my opinion. We had a case similar to this. Do you remember? Oh, I'm blanking on it. It was the Stoddart case. And the two teenagers were snuck in the house, and then they went upstairs, but it wasn't exactly clear who was stabbing, how many times. They could never really nail it down. She was stabbed quite a bit. But in the end, it was just like, look, you're both there. You both agreed to what was going on. Neither of you really tried to stop each other. You're both culpable. You're both complicit. It doesn't matter. So in my opinion, if you're there watching this happen and no one's putting a stop to this, everyone should be charged.
Well, like I said, good thing for the prosecutor's office there.
Yeah.
They didn't like that ruling by the judge.
No, they did not, because the Victorian Director of Public Prosecutions reversed the magistrate's decision and the four were charged again. which I don't know much about Australian law, but that is
it's
pretty
very
cool that
yeah.
you can do that.
It's a lot different than our criminal justice system.
Yeah. On February 14th, 1994, Leanne Reichenbach and David Klinger were charged with manslaughter. Ralph and Matthew faced charges of manslaughter, false imprisonment, and recklessly causing serious injury. All four, of course, pleaded not guilty and were tried together. And from the start, the group continued to behave bizarrely. Like one thing, during lunch breaks at the courthouse, people saw Ralph. He would just go and sit in his car alone and read his Bible.
Yeah, because obviously they're thinking God's going to deliver us from this. We're falsely accused.
Yep.
We're just doing the Lord's work.
Mm-hmm.
So God's going to come through.
Exactly. When Leah Clungston testified, she became breathless and stumbled over her words. She explained she did not usually speak that way. She trembled and her voice changed, which she said was caused by God. Leah said God was influencing her answers in court. And at one point she said, "Yes, I'm sorry. That is God speaking. Yes."
I'm honestly surprised that like a mandatory mental eval wasn't given to each of these guys.
Yeah, true, actually.
Because I'm concerned by the things she's saying. Like, yes, I'm sorry, that is God speaking.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Right.
There's something wrong with these guys.
Yeah. It's either an elaborate lie or
Yeah.
like kind of a performance that she's putting on, or something could be actually wrong with her. But in his closing statements, the prosecutor questioned Leah's spiritual claims, saying that if someone had powers like that, they would never need to work again, which I think that's kind
Valid.
of funny. Like, I like, I don't love lawyers, but sometimes when they pull some zingers like this, it's kind of fun. It's like, if God was speaking through you and you had all these supernatural powers, why are you restricted to kind of the conventions of your
physical reality and the social norms?
Exactly. Thank you. Filled in my blank there. I appreciate that. But in the first defense witness, a well-known surgeon named John Kennedy testified that he could not rule out the possibility that demons killed Joan. What kind of wackadoo surgeon is this, man?
Where is this in Australia?
Right.
I'm seriously questioning this area.
When the prosecution asked, this is clearly somebody the defense drummed up because it's like, oh, this guy's also a religious nut. We can get him in here. When the prosecution asked if he was seriously suggesting as a medical scientist that an evil spirit caused her death, he replied, "It may."
Pull his license.
Dude. The medical science of exorcism, the biochemical bodily functions that occur with exorcism have never been studied. I'm like,
this is not the place to debate that.
Yeah,
actually.
And it's like, is he wrong? Probably not technically. I don't think, has anyone been studying the biochemical bodily functions during an exorcism? No, but it sounds like you're completely reaching. And it sounds like somebody's being paid off, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
He also admitted that his only knowledge of exorcisms came from watching a TV documentary.
Let's go.
And the movie The Exorcist.
Full of facts.
My God. He could have established himself with some credibility if he was like, no, I studied under a priest. Actually.
Right. I went to seminary or, I did time with.
Right. No, he says a TV documentary in the movie The Exorcist. Good Lord. So actually moving on from that, another witness for the defense was a Catholic priest, Father John Stanley, who told the jury he performed somewhere between 5 and 10 exorcisms. He stated that he believed the 4 defendants had good intentions, but, quote, it turned the other way, and that's bad luck.
Ah, shucks. Just some bad luck.
Yeah. Also, as a true Catholic, you're not supposed to believe in bad luck because that's superstition. And that goes against the teachings of the faith. So.
Yeah. What parish did this guy come from? He's just a traveling priest.
Yeah. Hey, pay me enough. I'll say I'm a Catholic priest.
Priest for hire.
Yeah. So moving on from that, Matthew Nusske's attorney argued that while it may have seemed crazy for Matthew to have run about the house, if you remember, he wrapped it in that cling wrap, it should be considered only a religious symbol.
Get the out of here.
In what way? In what way? He also said that his client didn't believe that anything physical killed Joan. It was the demon inside her that did it.
Matthew needs a psych eval. Bad.
Yeah.
Or he's just a...
You know what I'm wondering in this? To me, some of this reads like they're just trying to convince the jurors. Because like if you're getting some local jurors and you know this is maybe a heavily religious community who would even believe in some of this, all they need is that doubt, right? So if they could just sow that bit of doubt among religious people who they're hoping are the jurors, it's enough. And I think maybe that's the defense's strategy here.
Well, during the trial, it was also revealed that Leanne and David wrote a letter to a pastor apologizing for their involvement in the exorcism.
Whoa.
Part of it read, "In relation to our involvement in recent events, we would like to express our sorrow and seek your forgiveness where we have acted in the flesh outside of God's will. We recognize that we can and do make mistakes and need God's grace and forgiveness. We believe that at the time we responded to Ralph's plea for help out of Christian love for him and Joan. We feel the hurt generated from the situation and where we have been out of the Lord's will in causing it. We are sorry."
That seems like a confession, right?
Yeah. Acting outside of God's will, so you took it upon yourself to do the things that you did.
Yeah.
So where is it, right? It's like they're still trying to play this like, well, God was a part of some of it, but then some of it was maybe us fucking up a little bit.
Right.
But it's like, no, come on.
I also wonder if this letter, they maybe out of naivete thought that their pastor, that's like, oh, this is kind of confidential to our spiritual leader. Something like a confession that you would see is like confidential, So maybe they didn't expect this letter to get out.
Well, that wasn't the only interesting letter that was presented in court. Another one that Leanne wrote stated that something good came out of the situation because the story had gone worldwide to highlight the existence of a spiritual realm. Okay. But at the same time...
anything, for me, it is doing the exact opposite.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just shooting in the dark at this point. They're just trying to see if anything will stick.
Yeah.
But at the same time, David's attorney tried to argue that Joan could have actually died due to an asthma attack or a seizure, even though there's no proof that she suffered from either.
It's just the doubt. They just need the doubt.
A Monsignor of the Catholic Church submitted a statement that was read aloud in court, and it read that exorcisms are rarely performed in modern times. Finally, a competent person here.
Yeah.
He also stated an exorcism shouldn't be performed without psychological and psychiatric tests being done first.
Right.
While the church still recognizes demonic possessions, modern medical advancements have helped recognize that what may have been attributed to demonic possessions in the past could actually be symptoms of mental health.
Right.
And while he didn't specifically say this was the case for Joan, it's easy for us to draw the conclusion based on the diagnoses we know she had.
Right.
Come on. Ralph's defense tried to point out why he wasn't able to understand that, because Ralph can't understand anything.
Yeah, really seems a bit dense.
A psychologist who interviewed him testified that he had still kept his faith in God and took him about a year to fully accept that Joan wasn't going to be resurrected from the dead. He believed Ralph was easily confused and relied on others' judgments when making decisions. He also testified that he had an average IQ of 100, was not aggressive, and was a loner who had trouble trusting people, but when he did form friendships, they were strong, and he followed their lead on everything and took them very seriously.
I do kind of resent this thing where it's like, I'm stupid, so that kind of alleviates my responsibility.
Yeah.
I think stupid people can still tell right from wrong.
Yeah, this is kids.
Yeah.
Understand this at like 2 years old.
Right. Especially when it's happening to someone you love. It's like even stupid people can understand this.
Right.
That's a very poor excuse.
But the prosecution pointed out the defendant's beliefs and opinions didn't matter because the force used against Joan exceeded the bounds of reason. In closing statements, the prosecutor said this: "I am not here in any way to criticize religion, Christianity, or whatever. But what I submit to you here is you can put that to one side because they went way past that. They had no consideration for Christianity. They went right past that. They were on a frolic of their own, and an unlawful frolic, which I love.
Boom.
That's great.
Yeah.
They were frolicking
They
around,
were, yeah.
wrapping saran wrap around the house,
Yeah.
beating her.
Right. Doing whatever they wanted.
By November of 1994, a jury composed of 5 women and 7 men had reached its decision. Leanne and David were both convicted of manslaughter.
There we go.
But Ralph was acquitted of manslaughter, but he was convicted of false imprisonment and recklessly causing serious injury. Matthew was only convicted of false imprisonment, which is a shame. And before they were dismissed, the judge said to him that he believed Ralph loved his wife and didn't intend to kill her, but he also said the situation was, quote, bizarre and quite extraordinary. And what Joan went through was, quote, cruel, painful, and quite horrifying, as well as rough, unwarranted, and unjustified. The judge also said it did not matter whether Joan was possessed by a demon because the violence and suffering she experienced were never justified. He made it clear that the group was not sentenced for performing an exorcism, but for their actions during it. In the end, Leanne Reichenbeck was sentenced to 2 years in prison, but because of a suspended 20-month sentence, she only served 4 months.
Ugh.
What a shame. David Klinger was sentenced to 18 months with 15 months suspended, so he served only 3 months.
Man.
And neither Ralph nor Matthew ever had to serve any time because of their suspended sentences. So it's justice really served here.
Yeah.
Talk about it in a sec. But as Ralph left the courthouse, a journalist asked if he had anything to say to Leanne and David, and Ralph replied, "Only words of encouragement." That sums it up right there for Ralph. And when Joan's family left the court, they were too upset to speak to anyone because I'm sure they were like, God, dude, was justice really served here?
No.
Does not seem like it. But after the trial, Ralph stayed on the farm for a while before marrying his 3rd wife, before moving to Queensland. In 2013, Ralph gave an interview to the Herald Sun, and in it, he put the blame on the mental health hospital where Joan was admitted before the exorcism, and he insinuated that none of this would have happened had she stayed there longer.
Fuck you.
He said the biggest mistake was made by the hospital in Ballarat because they released her when she wasn't ready to be released. So let's just go blame the very medical practice that was actually treating your wife.
Yeah. And I mean, here he is admitting that it was a mental health thing.
Yeah, totally.
No talk of a demon now.
He did also admit that he could have helped her find more mental health care. As for the other involved with the exorcism, it's unclear what happened to them after the trial. The only one we were able to find anything about was Matthew Nuske, the one who ran around the house with the cling wrap. He'll forever be known for that. He and his wife, guess what, are currently head pastors at Dream Builders Church in Melbourne.
Sweet.
Which is shocking, honestly. I wonder how many in his congregation know about this. I'm really curious.
Maybe we got to get the word out.
Yeah, anybody in Melbourne, you know anything about this church? And in 2023, a movie based on this case was released called Godless, the Eastfield Exorcism, which follows the character of Ron, a very religious man who believes his wife is experiencing possessions and recruits a group of friends to perform an exorcism on her. It has a rating of 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, and you can watch it on Tubi.
Tubi.
I'm honestly not surprised that somebody made a movie inspired by this.
Yeah.
It's that insane. But as for Ralph's farm, it was sold twice between the exorcism and now, and no one has ever moved in after that. Hopefully they just tear it down at this point.
Yeah.
It looks like it's boarded up now and it's just empty. But obviously, decades have passed since this whole incident. It's become part of local folklore, and for teenagers visiting, it kind of became a rite of passage because many have broken in through a hole in the wall, and some have even tried to hold seances to contact her spirit. But to this day, no one has ever claimed to see the spirit of Joan, which is just like, what are we doing here, people? So unnecessary. But yeah, what a tragic story. I mean, poor Joan.
Yeah.
No reason for this to happen. Could have absolutely gotten the help she needed. And had she had a loving, caring, supportive husband who actually wanted to help her stay on her medication, if that becomes an issue, then you go back to the professionals, right?
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about the charges and sentencing. I think I already know the answers. You guys
I'm like, at least couldn't we get second degree?
Think there's some intent there to kill?
I mean, if not, I think for you to be in that house for so long, committing to this thing for so long, there has to be, right? Like, what is, because I don't know, it seemed like they never really talked about like the end goal. Like, okay, we just have to do this and then she'll be released. We just have to pray harder or whatever. I feel like they all possibly just silently committed to ending her life.
Yeah. And I think had this not been a religious exorcism, we would have seen much steeper punishment here.
Absolutely.
Because even in Australia, manslaughter, which is the unlawful killing without intent, which is required for murder, but in Australia, maximum sentences could be 20 to 25 years. And these guys got months. Yeah. And I think it was probably a political thing.
Yeah.
They don't want to, ruffle feathers in the religious community there locally, or, judges want to keep their jobs and, people want to stay in office, unfortunately. And so I think that definitely played a role in it. That had this been any other circumstances not involving religion, they would have likely gotten much harsher penalties here.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think there was kind of admission to intent to some degree where it's implied because they're saying like, oh, this wasn't her. Like, I think it was Ralph was saying like, this wasn't my wife. This was the demon. So then it's like, okay, if you've separated this woman from her own body, then you're killing the demon is essentially what they're saying, which was kind of their goal. Then you killed her. Like 2 + 2 = 4 here. It seems pretty intentional what they did to her, in my opinion. I don't think you start choking people without an intention to kill them.
Yeah, I think as soon as they put hands on her, that's where it just leaves the realm of this being a religious ritual and just turns into assault.
Yeah.
And attempted murder, one could say, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of circumstances. It's the location. It's this community. It's a religious aspect. It's the people. There could be a lack of experience in prosecuting this type of case, I think.
I also think probably a lack of evidence because it's just what they're saying happened.
Right. There's a lot of he said, she said type stuff going on. So I think it was kind of the culmination of things that ultimately led to the sentencing not being as severe as it should have been. Because, in fact, Matthew doesn't have any really, doesn't have any sentence whatsoever.
Yeah.
Ralph even, like, come on. If anybody should have a punishment, it's Ralph.
Yeah.
He's the one who brought this all on them.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, and should have been her keeper through all of this and defended her, but instead did the opposite.
But my gut tells me that these guys really believe this shit and were really in it. And I have to believe it to even like rationalize the actions, because it's just like, how could a husband, so unless there was ulterior motives, like maybe what if he wanted his wife out of the picture for some reason? I mean, This is his second wife. He now moved on to his third wife. Was there something else going on there? Was it the fact that she wasn't getting on the religious train with him, that he kind of made this up? This started this off kind of full well knowing? That's what's scary about it, is that could this have been sort of this mastermind murder plan? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't seem like he's smart enough to.
Yeah, I was going to say that's giving his intelligence too much credit.
Totally, yeah, and I don't think he's smart enough to conjure a plan like that.
No.
But,
I mean, it could just be like they're caught up in hysteria. They all come over and they're like, "Oh my God, there's legions of demons," and they're, "Oh my God,
them, like, the group you should have seen her face.
Yeah,
the noise is coming out of her."
Yeah.
There's this.
I could see just hysteria at play.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't truly believe it, they just got caught up in whatever was happening.
But I think Ralph is ultimately number one person to blame here.
Yeah, same.
This falls on him. This is your
absolutely.
wife. Yeah. You have a duty to protect her and to help her, guide her, when especially if she's mentally ill or hurt, whatever it is. You sat there and watched people basically kill your wife, so and you participated. So
yeah,
I don't feel bad for any of these guys, and I hope his church closes down.
Yeah.
I hope people steal from the offering plates there.
Yeah.
I hope the numbers are dwindling.
Yeah.
Because, clearly didn't learn any lessons here. He just, go on, and maybe it's a story he tells. I'm sure he's got some, like, spin on it.
Oh, 100%.
Like, I was part of this exorcism. It was crazy.
I mean, imagine
I saw Satan.
Yeah, he remarried. So what is that woman up to? What is, like, she would have to inquire about, hey, what happened to your last wife?
Oh, we don't talk about it.
Yeah, like, and she must kind of know what's going on. I don't know.
She's probably a nut.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry.
Yeah. Well, to be with Ralph, you got to come down a few notches, I think.
Yeah.
In that department.
After
this
department.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know if there's any Aussie listeners out there, if you're familiar with. I'm sure there are, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts, or maybe you were present and saw the news headlines or saw coverage on this when it happened. Because what an insane exorcism case. I mean, just absolutely crazy.
I also want to know, if you're from Australia, what is this region like?
Yeah.
We were kind of thinking, is this
Antwerp.
kind of like deep south, religious Bible Belt area of Australia? I kind of I want to get a read on where this is, because that's kind of what I'd assume, right?
Well, there's a lot of just open space in Australia.
That's true.
The cities are situated on coasts.
Yeah.
For the most part, but otherwise just wide open.
Bunch of nothing.
Just country roads take me home. It's just a lot of little. It's farming and agriculture and mining and stuff. It's
the outback.
It's a great out. Yeah, it's just wide open. So they have a lot of rural. Yeah, I think there's a lot of similar places to our rural places here in the U.S.
Yeah.
So let us know your thoughts overall on this case. But we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up there today. I can't take any more of this. It's just so dumb. It's just the stupidity of these people. But we'll be back next week with another one. Until then, lights out, everybody.